Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Queen Amadai TV presents The Root of All Evil. Also, thanks to those of you tuned in on my other channel, Queen Amadai TV presents True Crimes. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about a nefarious police officer by the name of Antoinette Renee Frank from New Orleans, Louisiana, who in 1995 decided to kill the people that she was working for. And I don't mean the police, but she was actually working a second job, and she was a security officer at a restaurant, a Vietnamese restaurant. And she just went ham one night and decided she was going to rob these people and commit murder. Okay. So with that all being said, hello, Kenla. So with that all being said, let's get into it. Okay. So Antoinette Frank was a police officer. Now, in 1993, when she applied for the police department in New Orleans, first of all, she was caught lying several times on her application and during the interview. And then not only that, when she took the psychological exam, she failed it 2 or 3 times. And in fact, they stamped the test, her test results. They stamped and said, absolutely, do not hire. But they hired her anyway because they had a shortage of police in New Orleans. Okay. Now they say there's often, people from New Orleans have told me that there's often a shortage of police officers there. So they went on and hired her anyway, even though she had been caught lying and did not pass the psychological evaluation. Okay. So with that all being said, she became a police officer. And so one day there was a guy by the name of LaCaze. Now, LaCaze had been known as a drug dealer and a thug pretty much, right? He had had a few run-ins with the police. Well, he ended up getting shot. Well, just so happened that Antoinette Frank was the officer who was sent to go take his statement while he was in the hospital. So as she's visiting him in the hospital to get a statement from him about what happened or whatever, so she starts having this, conversation with him, and she decides that she wants to get him out of the street life and, turn him into a better person, like reform him. So they end up hanging out. And then before you know it, the relationship turns sexual. Okay? Wow, they must have been desperate. So anyway, so they start having a sexual relationship. And then before you know it, she's riding around with him in her police cruiser. Mind you, this guy is a whole thug and he's been arrested. And the police have a history with him. They know him as a thug and all this. So anyway, she's riding around with him in her police cruiser. And then she's lying, telling people when they see them together, she's literally telling people that he's her nephew or he's her cousin, just making up all these excuses. And then some of the officers know she's lying because they know him from the streets. But I guess they don't say anything. Maybe some of them told or whatever, but nobody did anything about it. So then some people even said that they had seen her letting Rogers drive her police cruiser, not just riding in the passenger side with her, but literally driving it. So that's all crazy, right? So anyway, like I said, she was working at this Vietnamese restaurant, and there was another officer, a white officer. I believe his name was Randy Williams. He was working there as well. And so he was the person who was really in charge of scheduling. Like for whatever officers would work there, he would do the scheduling. Okay. Melanie Brown said she lost her whole mind. Ronald Williams, that was his name. His name was Ronald Williams. But anyway, he was in charge of the scheduling. Okay, so now let's talk about what happened. So on midnight of March 4th, 1995, Antoinette Frank and LaCaze, they visited Kim Ah, which is the Vietnamese restaurant where she had been working. Now, it was run by the Vu family, and it was over in New Orleans East, okay? So she had been there. We know she had a good relationship with them, a good rapport, because not only did she work with them, sometimes when she wasn't even on duty, they would give her free food and stuff like that. So clearly they liked her, right? Okay, so anyway, as the employees cleaned up the restaurant this night, Chow Vu went into the kitchen to count the money and entered the dining room of the restaurant to pay Ronald A. Williams, who was the other officer. Now, he was white, okay? Ronald A. Williams was a white officer. And I don't know if I told you, but Antoinette is black, okay? So anyway, Chow Vu went into the back of the restaurant to get the money to come back and pay Officer Ronald A. Williams. Now, Williams was a colleague of Frank's who had been working in the security, working as a security guard during the night to supplement his police salary. So anyway, He had actually joined the police department in 1992, and he was married. And he had 2 children. Now, when Chow Vu went to pay him, she noticed Frank approaching the restaurant. So here comes Antoinette and her friend Rogers, who I believe at the time was like 17 or 18. He was younger than her because she was like 23 or 4 or something like that. So anyway, she sees them headed toward the restaurant. Okay, now Frank and LaCaze had been at the restaurant twice earlier that night. So now here they come again. And they had come earlier that night so they could get something to eat. You know, they got the leftover food that was likely going to be tossed out or whatever. So they came in earlier and had eaten, and then they came back a second time. Now, when she sees them come the third time, she's getting suspicious, like, wait a minute, hold up. Why are they coming right back? They just left a little while ago, and this is the third trip. But another thing to note is Chow Vu had also noticed that the key was missing to the restaurant. Because when she went to put the money up, right, take it in the back, after they started closing and cleaning up everything, she noticed, wait a minute, where's my key? And then the last time she remembered having the key, in fact, was when Antoinette had come back the second time with her friend Rogers, LaCaze. So she's thinking, wait a minute, where's the key? I can't find it all of a sudden. And so she was probably, I don't know for sure, but she was likely thinking, wait a minute, did Antoinette take the key? So anyway, so Frank and LaCaze had been to the restaurant twice earlier or whatever. When Chow Vu had let her out on the last visit, that's when she realized she didn't have the key any longer after she had locked the door or after she had locked the door. Okay, so Chow and Kwok and the employee, hold on, I'm sorry. After she noticed the key was missing, she got suspicious when she saw them coming back. So she told her brother, her younger brother, I believe his name was Vu, he was going to answer the door, and she told him, no, don't open it, because she was suspicious. Now, not only was she suspicious of Antoinette and Rogers because that was their third time coming back, but she had checked out Rogers, and he looked like a thug to her, like a gang member or something. You know, even though they didn't really have gangs in New Orleans back then, but she thought he looked like a gang member, you know, an unsavory character because he had all the gold teeth. You know, it's a big thing in New Orleans. Remember, if any of you know anything about New Orleans, you know, honey, a lot of people, especially in the 90s, they had all the golds, okay? Police. So anyway, he had a gold grill, and I'm not talking about the pullouts. They literally had the real ones back then. So she clearly thought he was a thug and got suspicious, not only because of that, not only because it was the third time coming back, but also because Officer Ronald A. Williams, after they left the last time, he told them, he said, I don't trust them. He said, the 2 of them together, he said, they are bad news. So he knew, he obviously recognized Rogers LaCaze from the streets also, because even though Antoinette had introduced them to Chow and Vu as her nephew as well. So Ronald clearly, Queen Gold was the thing. Yes, it was, honey. You know it was, because I used to love the dudes with gold grills, okay? Especially if they was dark skin. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, with that all being said, she told her brother not to let them in. But guess what? The door comes open and they waltz in anyway. Clearly because Antoinette stole the key when she was there the last time, right? So anyway, General Lovatur said, please. They still rocking gold in the dirty South. Yes, you know it. Yup, some of my family have them golds, okay? Louise said, queen. Okay, so anyway, they come in, right? So now, by now, they had to be scared. Because wait a minute, y'all done stole the key, and now y'all back for a third time? Whatever could they want is what they thinking now. Antoinette came in first, and she's walking ahead. So what happens is, you know, they're asking her, you know, Chow was asking her, what are you doing? What are you doing with the key? Why do you have the key, Antoinette? She doesn't say anything. She ignores her and starts heading towards the back. Now let me read it from here because I don't want to leave out any details. Okay, so she starts walking towards the back. She entered the front door using her key that she had stolen earlier at the restaurant, and she walked quickly past Williams, pushing Chow. Okay, and Chow's brother Kwok. Now, a restaurant employee she pushed them into the restaurant. She pushed them into the restaurant and into the employee door that led to the kitchen. Now, Williams started to follow in hopes to finding out what exactly is going on. So Officer Ronald Williams, when he sees her come back and she just walks in with the key like she owned the place, and now she's pushing them towards the back, he's following her like, wait a minute, hold up, what are you doing? What's going on here? So LaCaze, her friend Rogers, the sidekick, he shoots Williams, all right? He catches him off guard because obviously Williams didn't even notice him because he's trying to see what Antoinette is up to. So Rogers, LaCaze, walks up behind him and shoots the man, instantly paralyzing him because I think he shot him in the neck the first time, right? So Williams started to follow in hopes of finding out what was going on, and then shots rang out. LaCaze had slipped behind Williams and shot him in the neck, severing his spinal cord and instantly paralyzing him. Now, as Williams fell, LaCaze continued to shoot him in the head and back. So he just massacred the man, honey, mortally wounded him. Now, as Frank turned back to the dining room of the restaurant, Chow grabbed Quack and they ran to hide. Now, Chow, Quack, and the employee hid in the rear of the large walk-in cooler that was in the kitchen, and they turned out the lights as they entered. What they did not know was the whereabouts of their other sister and brother who were also in the restaurant. And that was Ha and Kuang Vu, who had been sweeping the dining room floors when Frank entered the restaurant. Now, from inside the cooler, Chow and Quack, they could partially see the kitchen and the front of the restaurant. Chow initially could see Frank looking for something in the kitchen. Y'all know what she was looking for? She was looking for that money. Because, see, here's the thing. When they were counting the money earlier that night, when Antoinette and LaCaze came in there, they had mentioned that they had a good night and they had made like $25,000. And Antoinette and Rogers LaCaze heard them. So that's what they were looking for. They came here to kill them because they wanted that money, honey. They heard how much Skrilla they had. And so they were frantically looking through the kitchen. They would even look in the microwave. Like, who would even think to look in the microwave, honey? But guess what? That's where the money was. Okay, because Chow had actually, when she saw Antoinette coming back the third time, that's when she told her brother, don't let them in here. And she grabbed the money and went to hide it because she must have known, honey, intuition or something. But she knew they were coming to steal. So she hid the money in the microwave, but they actually found it. So as Frank moved out of Chow's line of vision, additional gunshots were fired. But then they observed Frank searching where the Vus usually kept their money. So Frank and LaCaze had been shouting at Ha and Kuang, demanding the money for the restaurant, but they did not know where Chow had hidden it. They honestly didn't know. They had been sweeping the floors. They didn't even know that Chow was suspicious of Antoinette or anything. They didn't have any idea where the money was. So they're yelling at them, and so Frank pistol whipped them. She pistol whipped 17-year-old Kuang when he hesitated in revealing the location of the money. Poor thing, he didn't know where it was, honestly. Okay, then Frank got the money out of the microwave. Then she shot 21-year-old Ha 3 times as she knelt on the floor, pleading for her life. Both of them was pleading for their lives, honey, before she shot him. They were holding hands, and pleading for their lives. But she shot them, honey, like they were dogs in the street. Then, after she shot Kuang 3 times, she realized that LaCaze had left the premises. Now, LaCaze, I don't know why he left, but anyway, he had dipped. So Chow then tried frantically to call 911 on her cell phone while she was hiding in the cooler, okay? But the cooler prevented her from getting a stable signal. Quack emerged from the cooler and ran out the back door of the restaurant to a nearby friend's home to call 911 to report the murders. Now, mind you, when they're calling for help, they have an accent because they were Vietnamese. But at the same time, they were also frantic, anxious, and terrified, I'm sure. So they couldn't really get it out, couldn't really say exactly what happened. So when the police were on the way, the police didn't even know there's another police officer who in here killing up people and robbing, right? So the robbers fled the restaurant. And Frank dropped off LaCaze at a nearby apartment complex, right? So both knowing there were some witnesses left behind. Now, but mind you, because she's a police officer, she heard the 911 call on her portable police radio saying that the officer was down at the Kim restaurant. Okay, she borrowed a patrol car and returned back to the scene, honey, because she got to come and finish where she started. Because now she realized, okay, we got witnesses here, and somebody's clearly telling. Blackfoot said, "Evil ass witch, all for money." Absolutely, right? Marilyn said, "That's messed up." Yes, it is. Eric says, "I'm Black Queen." Okay, beloved. Now, so with that all being said, she goes back, and now this is how you know she had to be a crazy person, right? She already done came in there, killed up people, stole the money, ran and fled. Dropped off her accomplice. Now she's going to come back posing like she's a responding officer. Like they didn't just see her come there and kill people. So she comes back, act like she's a responding officer. Now she intended, what her intentions were was to go back and kill Child and Quack, okay? In order to ensure that there would be no more witnesses left. Parking her car in the rear, Frank entered through the back door of the restaurant and made her way through to the kitchen, through the dining room, where Child waited for help at the front door. Now, as Child bolted through the restaurant's front door to the safety of arriving officers, Frank immediately identified herself as a police officer. Oh, she thought she was slick, honey. So when she sees the police pull up and they're getting out, and then Child runs out there to, you know, frantically trying to tell them what happened, Antoinette comes out there and act like she'd been there the whole time just trying to help. She's like, oh, yeah, I'm a police officer. I was here. And some masked bandits ran out the back door. That's the lie she told. She told him, she said 3 masked men ran out the back door with her lying self, okay? So anyway, Child told Frank that she knew what she had done. She let her know, oh, honey, I know it was you. I know what you did. So she told her she knew what she had done, and she cried to the officers that Frank is the one who actually committed the murders. So that lie she told about bandits running out the back door, that didn't even fly. Okay, so now Eddie Rance, the homicide detective who worked the case, he believed that Frank and LaCaze planned the robbery to get revenge on Officer Ronald A. Williams. Frank believed that Williams was shortchanging her on the hours, because remember, he was the one in charge of scheduling. So she felt like he was shortchanging her on the hours, and also to pay back Kim Ong, and or to pay Kim Ong, and she wanted revenge. Now, that's what they felt like they planned this whole thing for. Now, Rand subsequently described Frank as the most cold-blooded person he'd ever encountered in his 3 decades as a police officer. Now, I don't know about that. I'm sure some of his own people are just as nefarious as she was, no less, okay? Judging from the history. But anyway, Child and Frank were questioned in detail while seated at different tables at the restaurant. Frank was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Now, LaCaze was arrested and charged later on that night. Frank was taken to police headquarters for additional questioning, where she later confessed to the crimes along with LaCaze. She was believed to be the first New Orleans police officer to be charged with killing a fellow officer. But let me tell you something. What they both did is they started snitching on each other, throwing each other under the bus. Because she started blaming it on Rogers LaCaze, talking about, yes, I killed him, but only because he had a gun to my head. But question is, how is she going to explain and justify the fact that she's been hanging out with this thug and allowing him to drive the police cruiser, you know, and being out chum with him and even messing around with him? So clearly she was lying. But yeah, she tried to blame it on him by saying he put a gun to her head and made her shoot them. Well, that was all stupid, because just as much as he had the gun to her head, he could have just shot them himself. So anyway, but meanwhile, LaCaze is over at the next table lying and putting everything on Antoinette. Okay, acting like he wasn't even doing nothing. So he eventually, under further questioning, he actually said that he wasn't even at the restaurant. Because remember, he left after she started killing up everybody. Now, mind you, he's the one who killed Officer Ronald Williams. But he fled after that. And then she was killing up the rest of the people. So when she went and picked him up later, I guess that's why he felt like he could just say, oh, no, I was there. But yeah, I left. And I never came back. I wasn't even there. That's the story he tried to tell. So then some people in New Orleans were like, well, maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was somebody else that she went and got, because at the end of the day, it was a lot of black men with gold teeth back then. And they were saying, you know, people of other ethnicities think all black people look alike. Some of them think all black people look alike. So they were like, she could have gone and gotten somebody else, or maybe it wasn't even LaCaze who did any of this. But I'm pretty sure it was him. That's just my opinion. But so anyway, they ended up going to trial, and Frank and LaCaze were both indicted by the New Orleans Parish Grand Jury on April the 28th of 1995. Now, their trials were separate. Okay, they had separate trials. That's what they call it when they have 2 different trials or whatever for the same crime. And then LaCaze was tried first between July the 17th through the 21st of 1995 before Judge Frank Marullo. He was tried before Judge Frank Marullo, and he was found guilty as charged and sentenced to death. Okay. His main tip-off had been using Williams's Chevron card. See, that's another thing too. That's how you know he was lying. He was clearly there because after he killed Officer Ronald Williams, he stole the man's debit card or whatever, his Chevron card, credit card, and went to the Chevron gas station in Gretna just minutes after the robbery and murders. Now, how dumb was that? Okay. Now, here's the thing. If he hadn't been so stupid and used the man's credit card, he could have at least raised reasonable doubts. Okay. He could have raised reasonable doubt with the jury. Because by the fact that he said he had left, that could have called into question, well, was it somebody else? But he used the man's credit card, honey. So clearly it had to be him. Now, the next day, Frank's trial began on September the 5th of 1995. Also before the same judge, Judge Marullo. Now, although Frank's attorneys had subpoenaed 39 witnesses, they didn't call a single one. I wonder why they didn't call a single one. I'm glad you asked. Likely because all of them were going to say something negative about her because probably didn't have anything good to say. So on September the 12th of 1995, the jury needed only 22 minutes to return guilty on all verdicts, on all counts. Okay? Melanie Brown said, may they both rot in piss. All right. Okay? So they got guilty verdicts on all counts. A record for a capital murder case in New Orleans. That was a record-breaking, right, verdict for capital murder in New Orleans, and done by a police officer, no less. Now, the next day, they needed only 45 minutes to recommend the death penalty. She was formally sentenced to death on October the 20th of 1995 and sent to death row at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women, also known as LCIW, in St. Gabriel near Baton Rouge. Now, Officer Williams was interred in Lake Lawn Metairie Cemetery on March the 7th of 1995. That's where they buried him at. His name was inscribed on the memorial wall at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Initially, the Vu family kept the restaurant open at the site of the tragedy in New Orleans East for a decade until suffering flood damage from Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And post-storm looters stealing jewelry, which Ha and Kuang had been wearing when they were killed. Now, after that, Quoc Phu and his mother, Nugette, sold the location, reopening the restaurant in Harahan and moving their residents to Metairie, where they said they felt safer. In 1993, a year and a half before the murders at the Kim Ang restaurant, Frank's father had stayed at her home for a time before she then reported him missing. So they think she killed her father because the father came up missing in 1993. And he had been staying with her right before he came up missing. And she's the one who reported him. So in November of 1995, a month after she received her first death sentence, a dog led police to find a human skull with a bullet hole buried under Frank's house. And in 2005, in a 2005 retrospective, Chuck Humestria said, as for those human bones found under Antoinette Frank's house, so far, authorities have made no serious effort to identify them. The 10-year-old case, they say, remains under investigation. But it was 9 times out of 10 her father. Okay? Whoever it was, she clearly killed him. Now, police and prosecutors believe that the skull was that of Adam Frank, and that Antoinette murdered him. However, since she's facing a death penalty already in the Kim Ang murders, they have made no effort to try her for her father's death. And on October the 18th of 2006, Frank's lawyers argued before the Louisiana Supreme Court that her death sentence should be overturned because she was denied state-funded experts to help prepare for her sentencing phase of the trial. They argued that the defense needed to conduct an investigation into the defendant's background for possible mitigating evidence. Now, Frank's attorneys introduced the testimony of psychiatrists who, in fact, said that it was possible that traumatic events in Frank's early childhood could have affected her behavior at the time of the murders, and she may have been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Say what now? Oh, they be trying it. Even if she did have post-traumatic stress disorder, that's going to lead you to kill, because there's a whole bunch of people that suffer from that. God forbid they all go out on a killing spree. But anyway, a psychiatrist retained by the state disagreed that Frank showed symptoms of trauma. He agreed with the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. That's clearly what she was, if you ask me too. Okay, narcissistic personality disorder, i.e., she had the same personality as a serial killer. Okay, she clearly could have been a serial killer. And see, that's why I be telling y'all, some of these police officers who out here killing people, they're serial killers. They just get to do it legally. They're no better than Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy and David Rader. All right, the BTK. They're no better than them. Some of them are actually psychopaths and sociopaths. Just the facts. So anyway, they said she not only had narcissistic personality disorder, but she had it with antisocial tendencies given to Frank by doctors. She was deemed this by doctors at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women. Now, on May the 22nd of 2007, the state of Louisiana Supreme Court ruled by 5-2 that the death penalty should actually be upheld. So on April 22nd of 2008, District Court Judge Frank Marullo signed the death warrant for Antoinette Frank. According to the warrant, Frank was scheduled for execution by lethal injection July 15th of 2008. In May, however, the Louisiana Supreme Court issued a 90-day stay of execution effective June 10th, pending ongoing appeals. And then on September the 11th of 2008, the day that the state Supreme Court said the stay was to end, a new death warrant was signed again by the judge, by the same judge. And according to this second warrant, Frank was scheduled for execution by lethal injection December 8th of 2008. In a new round of appeals, defense attorneys argued they had too little of time to prepare and to review the voluminous record because of the deadline in filing the appeal. So it was too much paperwork, and they said they hadn't had time to review all of it. So the state Supreme Court ruled the case again. Their decision, made public November the 25th of 2008, effectively voided the death warrant signed by George Marullo in September. Now, in September of 2009, Frank's lawyers moved to have Judge Marullo removed from the ongoing post-conviction appeals on the grounds of bias, okay, given that he had already signed the death warrants for her in the first place. Now, Louisiana State Judge Laurie White heard the motion in September of 2009, and on January the 3rd of 2010, ruled that Marullo should not be taken off the case. Now, Frank's attorney stated she would appeal the ruling at the state Supreme Court, which had already overruled both of Marullo's death warrants. However, yet another lower court state judge ruled in October of 2010 that Marullo had to be recused from the Frank and LaCaze cases because it was unclear if he had been open with the defense teams about his own surprising connection to the gun that was used in the restaurant murders. See, Marullo's signature appeared on an order authorizing Frank to take the murder weapon from the evidence room. Marullo has long maintained the signature was forged. It wasn't forged, honey. He signed it, trust me. No female has been executed by the state of Louisiana since 1942. On July the 23rd of 2015, retired District Judge Michael Kirby threw out Roger LaCaze's conviction and sentence and ordered a new trial. Now, this is for Roger LaCaze. They threw out his conviction. They had a new trial. And then Kirby said that LaCaze served or deserved a new trial because one of the jurors hid the facts that he was a Louisiana state trooper and previously worked as a railroad policeman. Now, you see how they get down? They're going to make sure they get you guilty, right? They're going to make sure they get justice. So he had that information. Now, at the time, commissioned law enforcement officers were legally barred from sitting on a jury, of course, because of bias. Now, Kirby wrote that while he felt the evidence of LaCaze's guilt was overwhelming, the juror misconduct amounted to a structural defect and a violation of the constitutional right. So basically, it didn't give him the right to a fair trial, basically. Okay. And also that the only remedy to fix this issue was a new trial. So Kirby's ruling had no effect on Frank's conviction because she didn't have the same issue. Now, because remember, he went to trial separate from her, and he in fact went first. Now, an appellate court later overturned the new trial order for LaCaze. The Fourth Circuit appellate judges Edwin Lombard and Paul Bonin and Madeline Landreau ruled after review of the court's writ application in light of the applicable law and arguments of the parties. They said, we find that the trial court erred in finding that the seating of Mr. Settle on the defendant's jury was a structural error, entitling him to a new trial. So Frank was profiled, and that's how that went. So he's still in prison, she's still in prison. Antoinette Frank was profiled on a that show Deadly Women on ID channel in 2009. She was also on an episode of Snapped Killer Couples in 2015, and also I'll Kill for You in 2016. Now in November of 2020, TV One debuted a movie inspired by Antoinette Frank called Blood on Her Badge, and LCIW was damaged by the 2016 flooding, so its prisoners, including Frank, were removed to other prisons. LaCaze was resentenced to life in prison without parole rather than death, and that was on December 13th of 2019. LaCaze is serving his sentence at the Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola. Ooh, Angola is a rough prison, honey. You know Angola prison is named after Angola plantation, because that prison used to be a plantation, right? And they have them out there picking cotton too, just so you know. But anyway, not that he doesn't deserve it, but I'm just bringing that up. But yeah, that was all so crazy. But here's the thing though, Antoinette, I really think that she had some mental issues. But I think she knew what she was doing, but she clearly was, you know, a psychopath or whatever. Psychopath is not mental issues. That's really a character flaw, but I think she was a little crazy too. Okay, I think she was a little crazy. And you know, when they transferred her to another prison, they said they had to put the shackles on her. They had to tie her arms. They had to put shackles on her feet and, you know, handcuff her and all this. They had to really restrain her because they said this woman is crazy. She knows judo. She knows all kind of martial arts and all this stuff, and she just fights and all this stuff, whatever. So they have to really be careful when they're transporting her from one place to another. Yes, she's very dangerous, and that's why I think she's clearly crazy. Maybe she has a demon or something, I don't know, but clearly she's off the hinges. Okay, so that's the story of the nefarious, notorious Antoinette Frank, who was actually a police officer out here on these streets. Now, I just want to tell you all, honey, she's not the only police officer who's crazy like that, okay? She's not the only one who's that wicked and evil and nefarious, all right? So now if you wonder why all these black people getting shot up and killed, there's plenty of Antoinette Franks on the force, I guarantee you, all right? And who didn't, in fact, pass those psychological exams, but are still police officers to this day. And at one point, this is another thing, too. At one point, officers were complaining to the chief about her, you know, saying that she was violent, saying that, you know, she was just, you know, was I can't remember the terms they used, but basically saying she was just off the chain, you know. And then at one point the chief even thought about sending her back to the academy to get some more training. That's how off the rails she was, but they allowed her to continue working, and you see how that turned out. So crazy. Anyway, with that all being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. So thank you all for tuning in once again. But also don't forget, I'm going live right now. In fact, I'm a few minutes late, so I got to hurry because I'm going live on the other channel. Queen Amidai TV presents More Than Meets the Third Eye. Okay, we're going to be talking about spiritual orbs and ancestors. So I'm going to go ahead and start that live, and then I'll be going on to do your daily vitamin at 6 p.m. All right, so I hope to see you all right black in the chats. Thank you all for tuning in once again. Make sure you subscribe to the channels. Make sure you like and share the video. And until next time, bros, I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.